Lekker Brentie Boy, episode 27. Semifinals,
Yeah,
done and dusted.
what a weekend of rugby.
It was very interesting. We spoke briefly about the Sharks. We'll get to that. But yeah, interesting weekend.
I've got all my picks wrong on the podcast, but when I saw EP27 was not picked for the squad, I quickly went to my Super Brew and went for the Bulls by 10, which I wasn't far out with. But even with EP27 being there, I don't know if the Sharks were going to win this one. But we'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah, I also don't think he would have made a difference. But without further ado, let's jump into the first one. Leinster, Glasgow, result I expected there. Would have liked for Glasgow to put up a bit more of a fight, and maybe make it a 5-pointer or a 3-pointer, not a 20-pointer.
Yeah, look, it was expected for you. I thought the Glasgow. I mean, I thought, to me, I was perhaps wrong in thinking that Leinster was sort of not taking the URC as serious as they should, and maybe still having their heads down because of the Champions Cup loss. And I thought that maybe the fans were the same. When you look at the stadium, I think there was 14,000 people there, whereas the Sharks and the Bulls had almost 50,000 people there. You would think that the stadium would have been full for a knockout game in the URC. And you sort of seen glimpses of sort of fatigue. The last episode, I mean, the last weekend as well, where the Leinster played Scarlets, and obviously didn't put up the best performance against them. And then Glasgow Warriors put up a monster performance against the Stormers last weekend. So I actually honestly thought that Glasgow were going to come and do a job on Leinster. And also with Leinster's history and always getting knocked out in finals. This is actually Leinster's first final in the URC. I thought this was it, but they showed up. They really showed up. They looked unbelievably good. I mean, when the game started, I know Leinster scored first, and I thought, after Glasgow replied immediately with a beautiful try. I think it was Carl Rowe at a chip kick, and then Horn, I forget his name, the scrummy, jots it down and scores. And I thought, this is going to the whole game back and forth, which is what a knockout rugby should be. But then Leinster just ran away with it. I'll be honest with you. After the fifth try, I actually stopped watching. I just thought, no way is Glasgow coming back from this.
Yeah, I think the big thing is you mentioned last week's match against the Stormers, and I think last week's match against the Stormers was a different thing because I think that is the match that Glasgow probably banked on, as they have a lot of players leaving. They've got a lot of players retiring at the end of the season, and that was obviously their last game on home soil. For a lot of those players, and I think last week they just tried to honor those players. Coming back to this weekend, I think I mentioned it earlier, Turpelotto playing outside centre, not his usual stint at number 12.
Position,
I feel that is a bit experimental, but Glasgow just didn't pitch up for the match.
No. I don't know if it's that they didn't pitch up or if Leinster was good for them. But how good was Ryan Baird though? Obviously him getting a shot now that Josh and Cannon Doris and the usual loose forwards are out. He getting a shot in the starting
lineup,
15, and he played brilliant. He was a fucking beast. I think he was man of the match as well.
Yeah, no, he did look good though, and it's difficult for him to be in that position as well. Considering you playing alongside the primary three loose forwards of Ireland, so there's not going to be a lot of game time for you, and it's great to see when a player does get that opportunity, like in his case that he grabbed it with both hands.
Yeah, 25 years old. He's still playing a lot of rugby. How bad was Sam Prendergast? It seems like he missed every fucking tackle, I don't know if he, probably not in the best set of mind because of not getting chosen. traditional Irish Lions or what it is, but he was very, very poor, knocking the ball on. I think that was on the 48th minute. They were about to score and Sam Prendergast knocked. And it just felt like, I need to go look at the stats, but it felt like he missed every single tackle. He's sliding off of players. So I think that's something Leinster need to look at when they're playing the Bulls next season or next round. Because the Bulls will definitely take full advantage of that. You're
Yeah,
saying that the Glasgow Warriors discipline was also very, very, very bad. I think that's also what cost him. I know it was not the greatest of conditions, but I mean, surely they're used to playing in the rain.
yeah, I think so. I think that there's no excuse at this level of rugby, for weather and anything like that, because they should have analysis was probably done, and it was given, that information was given to them, that they probably gonna have some wet weather at some point. It's gonna be slippery and all that stuff. I think yeah, Glasgow. I feel probably between Glasgow and the Blue Bulls, that their discipline has cost them a lot. They could have had much better matches and everything. Getting back to the fatigue, I agree with that. And we mentioned it a bit earlier before the show as well. You get to that fatigue point, and you get to that point of fatigueness. Where you go like. The Europeans love the EPCR and the Champions Cup, and Leinster fell out on that. You're looking at most of the rankings on club level. Leinster still tops most of the rankings as the best club of the season. But they don't have anything to show for it. And I think they shifted. I think they shifted their focus to the URC, and they're going to try and say, okay, well, listen, let's win the URC, because then we can still go and say, we beat Springbok Leiden teams from the South African side. We beat pretty much all the Welsh competition. We've beaten pretty much all the Scottish competition. And we've beaten most of the Italian competition, So looking at that then, winning the URC for them would almost be like their swan song for the season, to say, listen, okay, so we didn't do well in the Champions Cup. And whatnot. We didn't, as Ireland, we didn't do good in the Six Nations. So, but we won the URC, where we competed against, all the teams that pretty much compile the World Champions at the moment, which is your South African sides. On the other hand, I think Glasgow. One thing that we've seen this season, and it's become pretty evident for me, especially if you look at the teams that were playing in the top, there's just not enough depth at the moment for me in the teams playing in the URC. We saw that with the Stormers. A lot of injuries cost us, forced us to have a very, very, very bad start to the season, where we were playing with third, fourth choice players that had to come in for people like Manu Leboeck, for Damien Willemse, that was out with injury, came back, played 2 or 3 games, was out with injury again. You're looking at Leoland Zas. You're looking at the core structure of your team. You're not replacing one guy. It's not one injury. You're replacing a bunch, and we've seen that with Glasgow as well. I think Glasgow. The big problem is Glasgow has got these 1 or 2 matches that they just massacre, and then they've got one match where they just don't pitch up.
Yeah,
and then all credit to Leinster, because obviously they knew what Glasgow's game plan was going to be coming into this. And they just stumped that game plan, because Glasgow just never got that flowing rugby that we used to seeing from them. And Prendergast, well, we've discussed this before he was even chosen for Ireland, probably the most overrated fly-off in world rugby at the moment. I don't think he's gonna be good for Ireland, because like you say, he's missing tackles, and based on that, quality sides. Jake White is a World Cup winning coach. He's picked up on that, and they're gonna target that channel fucked up over next weekend's final.
Yeah, well, before Prendergast was Ross Byrne, and I remember they were complaining about him. And he also very similar. Wasn't the best number 10 that Leinster could have chosen. Obviously, after Sexton left, there was a massive gap that needed to be avoided, needed to be filled. in the Leinster, or in the 10 shirt. And I think they thought Ross Byrne was the answer, and it turned out that he wasn't. And then they thought Prendergast, and they were making this massive hoo about how good Prendergast is. And I don't think he is. I think actually you're better off with Ross Byrne, to be honest with you. But, God save us the day that they get a 10 that's unbelievably good, because then they really will be unstoppable. But yeah, all credit to them. Leinster as a team, they've had a brilliant season. My prediction goes for shit, but I do think they are.
Yeah, I don't fully trust your predictions when it comes to Leinster anymore.
That's one prediction I'd be happy to be wrong, to be honest with you.
But talking about that, they're facing the Bulls, so with that we can let's see what went wrong there, because I feel like we've got a lot to say about this match. Sharks versus Bulls. I'm going to let you kick off on this, because obviously your team was in this match with the Sharks, and yes.
The Sharks have a way of just when you sort of want to give up on them, they have a way of pulling you back in. You know what I'm saying? And then just when you start believing, they disappoint you again. And I'm not saying the Sharks had the best season, furthest they got into URC. They were winning when they weren't playing well. One of those games, But what the fuck? The Sharks were terrible, Lucanio Arm, who used to be one of the best outside centers in the world at one stage, just had the worst game. But you blame him, good players can have bad games many times before. Can you blame him, or do you blame sort of the coaching staff? Because I think after the fourth or fifth knock on, seeing that Lucanio is not in this game, and your team needs sort of a spark to score, and you've got that spark on the bench that you haven't used in the form of Jerenzo Julius, why did they not take Lucanio off and bring Jerenzo Julius on? I don't understand that.
Yeah, I think there for me, that's definitely a coaching issue. You're sitting with probably one of the biggest ball carriers in world rugby on the inside center with Andre Esterhuizen. You're sitting with, he's making meters, he's putting Lucanio in the positions that Lucanio needs to be in, he's doing his job. Okay, so you're probably sitting with probably the most sought after number 12, and he's working his nuts off to get into the positions, put Lucanio in the positions, to just lose the ball all the time. I feel that you're sitting with Jerenzo Julius, which we've rated as probably the next number 13 to wear the green and gold. He's fast. He reads the game well. He does everything. And why wouldn't you have just gone and said, okay, obviously something's not working. Lucanio isn't having a good game. Let's take him off. Okay, let's bring on Jerenzo. See if that works better. I mean, you've got him on your bench. He's a replacement player for a reason. You replace an injured player, or you replace a player that's playing purely shit. And Lucanio, good players have bad games, like you mentioned. But it's become too normal for him to have bad games.
Yeah, you're right. He hasn't had a good game in long. But not just him. It's not purely his fault that the Sharks lost. Just the Sharks' decision making. In all fairness, I mean, throughout the game, I mean, they had a penalty 57 meters out from the try line. They go for the 3 points, and I think they were chasing with 11 or 14. And obviously, I think Jordan Hendricks thought it was going to be one of those big balls moment where he makes the kick. But why take chances like that in a semi-final? Go for the corner, get into the 22 or just outside the 22 or just closer to the line. And that is attacking platform. And then other. I mean, there was the Bulls had like 3 or 4 yellow cards, giving the Sharks how many opportunities to score, giving them a 2-man overlap. They have twice they had the ball right in front of the Bulls try line, and yet instead of going far, knowing you've got an overlap, they just try and score in that small little space. Just try and pass it, giving short passes and trying to like monster over the line. You're playing the Bulls. They're probably the most physical team in the URC. Take it wide and expose the gaps because of the yellow cards. I don't think they scored once with the yellow card. The decision making was terrible. The Sharks, the Bulls completely deserved to win. I don't know. Lucanio had a very bad game. But the one very, very disappointing thing coming out of this, and something that the Bulls are definitely going to be missing, is Cameron Hanekom, who looked like he had a serious injury. And I think he's one of the players that definitely going to need for
yeah,
the
I
next
wanna,
game.
I wanna, I wanna reiterate on that. I mean, I understand that rugby is obviously not ballet, and it is a physical contact game, and incidents like that do happen. We've seen a lot of careers end. A while back, I mentioned a player called Patrick Lambie, which would have probably still been the choice number 10 for South Africa because he was just that good, and he did play for the Sharks as well. He was a fantastic number 10.
Yeah.
You're looking at that, and I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking, like, Siya Kolisi's going into that full well knowing that he needs to have this player in his Springbok team, probably going to be captaining this player in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks. To do something like that is idiotic. I've lost a lot of respect for Siya.
What happened? Can you explain? I missed that.
I just think Siya went in.
Was very injured, and I know that it looked very bad. But
Siya went in for me. Siya went in a bit cynical. I don't think it was needed to go in like that. Cameron Hanekom got a yellow card. That wasn't his fault. It was that that
James Fenter.
Yeah, James Fenter, and thank God he's leaving the country because he's such a cancerous rugby player. And he lifted Cameron Hanekom. Cameron Hanekom was in a wrapping tackle, and Siya fell. He didn't get injured or anything, and I think this was kind of a revenge moment, and whatnot. And I think it's failed. It's caused a lot of disruptions. I think Siya is I mentioned this before the game. I think Siya is cooked. I respected him a lot as a captain. He's led us to 2 World Cup trophies and whatnot. But at the moment, he's kind of become on a suicide mission, a malicious player, and I don't appreciate that. We've always been physical, and sometimes with physicality accidents do happen. But when you play deliberately malicious rugby, like Siya's doing at the moment, I cannot respect him as a captain or as a rugby player anymore.
I don't think, like I said, I didn't see the incident that caused the injury, or I can't remember the incident caused the injury, but I do remember the incident of the yellow card. I don't think that in my opinion, I don't think that Siya is a malicious guy. I can't see that, because I remember when obviously Cameron Hanekom got the yellow card for, I think, being overzealous. He lifted him above the horizontal, which wasn't his fault. Obviously, while Cameron Hanekom was making the tackle, and Cameron Hanekom immediately went to Siya and apologized, and Siya actually put his hand on him and said, "No, don't worry, don't stress about it." Obviously, still getting his yellow card. I don't think Siya Kolisi is playing the best rugby. We've seen him playing much better than he's been playing the past few games. Maybe I don't want to believe that Siya can be malicious.
I think every player, when you play rugby, you and that's the beautiful thing about rugby. For 80 minutes, I'm gonna go out and go make it my life's mission to tackle the living shit out of you, to hurt you, to make you feel pain, and to make you make sure that I'm there all the time. And that's why I say it is what it is. And it's sad to see, because the Bulls just on that Ulrich Lau now
injury.
Cameron Hanekom. Luckily, they've got players like Nizam Kar that would probably be the obvious choice. Yeah. So coming in with all that experience and stuff, something they might actually value, or might be of a lot of value to them in a final scenario.
But it is very sad, because remember Cameron Hanekom. Last season, semifinals, same time, got injured when playing against Leinster, and it was just about, obviously, just before the Springbok season, and also missed out on a lot of rugby, because he did eventually get a Springbok cap later in the year. But I honestly think, everyone was hoping that Hanekom was going to come and be that starting number 8, or at least be in the 23 for the Springboks this year. And I don't know, obviously we don't know the extent of the injury, but it looked serious. It looked very bad. He was sipping on that morphine. And it looked really, really bad.
Yeah, I think let's hope for a quick recovery, and all that. And I think a lot of the stuff. I'm just gonna say this. We've bashed players a lot, and we've had sessions where we've bashed the referee, right? And I just want to say, Andrew Bryce had a horrid game in officiating that, you know. And I was watching this game as a neutral supporter, you know, because I'm a Stormer. So for me, I was curious as who's going to be the team that was going to represent South Africa in the finals. You know, looking at that, right? Yellow card, Harold Foster plays the ball in the tackle on the ground, gets a yellow card immediately for that. Okay.
Cynical, yeah.
Yes. Bongo Mbonambi, cynical, goes past the thing in the 22. So it is in a cynical position of the field, doesn't get a yellow card.
Yeah.
Okay. You're looking at the thing with Hanekom was, I mean, when we need to go to the TMO, we don't. And when we don't need to go to the TMO, they do. That was a simple thing of going to the TMO and saying, listen, this is what I've seen on the field. Just check it for me. And they would have clearly seen that Dipsha James Venter went and lifted Hanekom's legs, which put him in a position that he shouldn't have been in. And in actual fairness, it was a tackle. So by that, James Venter actually played Hanekom without the ball.
Yeah.
You know, so if you want to go and you look at the technical aspect of it, that should have actually then been a yellow card for James Venter as well. You know, and it's the same with the other yellow card. I mean, it was just like the Bulls do one thing. There was no warning. It wasn't like repeated offences or whatever. Yellow cards left, right, and centre. Sharks do the same thing repeatedly in their own 22 when the Bulls are on attack, and there's just no consequences for that. You know, do I think if the Sharks beat the Bulls that they would have stood a chance against Leinster? No, I honestly don't. I think our best option or our best chance to bring the URC Cup back to South Africa is the Bulls.
That's what I keep on telling myself. You know, obviously as a Shark supporter, telling myself as the positive coming out of this is that the Bulls have the biggest chance to beat Leinster away, whereas the Sharks wouldn't have stood a chance. You know, I think Leinster have put a number on the Sharks much higher than you know what they did to Glasgow, and that would have been very bad for them. With a big deficit like that, it would have been very bad. I still think that Leinster are going to go all the way up to one. But I think it's not impossible for the Bulls to.
I think it's Leinster's cup to lose. Let me put it that way. I think it's their cup to lose. They're definitely the informed provincial side. You know, globally, they ranked as the number one club side in the world at the moment. It's their URC to lose. I just think that the Bulls might just be hungry enough to go and put up a fight in Ireland and probably bring it
for
down.
the Bulls. I mean, this is their third out of the 4 USCs. There's only been 4. This is the 4th season. Out of the 4 of them, Bulls have been in 3 finals. You know, well, this will be their 3rd final. So it'll be bad for the to have reached so many finals and not walk away with a dub once.
It's like Ireland that's been in all the quarterfinals World Cup. You know, no, I fully agree with that. You know, and I'm backing the Bulls purely because it's a South African side and I can't handle James Lowe. But I do think if you have to look at it from a perspective of who's the underdog, I think the Bulls are definitely the underdog. You know,
100%.
it's a massive travel. They're looking at, you know, it's traveling all the way up there. It's acclimating yourself to the conditions and whatnot, and then, you know, half the time you spend there flying, half the time you try and get rid of the jet lag to be ready on Saturday. You know, and. Yeah. I think that the Bulls, with the coach that they have, are just professional enough that I think that they're going to surprise us, and I think they're going to bring it back home. I'm definitely backing them. Talking about that, I know we usually do a news segment, but most of my news is still related to the URC, so I'm not going to jump to the segment. I'm going to stick to the Cameron Hanekom scenario. With Cameron Hanekom's injury at the moment, the Springbok squad has been boosted to 55, up from the normal 54, and Evan Roos has been called up. Obviously, Rassie and them waiting for more clarity on what is exactly wrong with Cameron Hanekom before they make the decision to exclude him out of out of the incoming series squad. You know, is it a short-term injury? Like, can he recuperate in the next
Like
2 or 3 weeks? I doubt it. And you know, congrats to Evan Roos. You know, he was the next logical call up. And just before we move on completely from the Sharks Bulls game, right? Just want to say this. It still baffles me that de Klerk has not been included in the thing, you know. And we've discussed this. It was the battle of your informed wings. You know, you probably had 4 first choice wings on that field. You know, you had Kainen Moody, you had Makazole Mapimpi, you had that little guy from the Sharks, and then you had Sebastian de Klerk. You know, and I feel that, you know, any of those combinations would probably work seamlessly in a green and gold jersey. You know, Sebastian de Klerk was just outside of himself. He was on defense and whatnot. And I'm not sure if Rassie is not, you know, maybe there's a dead spot on Rassie's TV, so you can't see when de Klerk gets the ball. I don't know. It's an odd choice for me, you know, to not pick one of the informed wingers that has stood up this season.
Look,
when it comes to that.
I agree with you. He had a brilliant game and a brilliant season, and you know, it's very fortunate for him to be getting an opportunity like this, because he was usually obviously a backup for Curtly Aronson. Curtly Aronson's been enjoying his time in Japan so much, and which has given us, or Sebastian de Klerk, an opportunity to prove himself, and he's done that. He's taken that opportunity. I mean, this game, I mean, I know in our group you were saying it and sort of rubbing it in, and it actually hurt my feelings a bit, because he was my team. But he really had a brilliant game. He was just all over the show, you know, on attack, on defense. He was just a beast. I mean, even that little crossfield kick that led to the try. Kainen Moody, I can't remember who scored the try.
It was Kainen, but it was just read so well, and I just feel that he was snubbed a bit, along with Embrus Pampir, along with Jerenza Julius. You know, we can. There's a lot of names that we would have probably. Well, I would have included them as inclusions. You know, ahead of a lot of the players that have been included there. And you know, he was. I mean, I think he's 24, 25, you know, so he still has a couple of seasons. But with Curtly coming back, you know,
Curtly won't come back.
Yeah, Sebastian also well known for his center. He played a lot of center at school level and stuff. So, you know, it is a potential scenario for him to slot into that. Maybe next season, you know, Harold Foster. Also reaching that side of his career, where you might see, if Curtly should return, you might see a Kriel and de Klerk combination at center. That would be an exciting combination, because they're both very attacking, you know. And then see your normal Moody and Arons on the wings. You know, time will tell. I don't know. I feel he was snubbed. I rate him very highly still. And if he doesn't get Springbok, I'll be very surprised. The last thing with that I wanted to, with us going into next weekend. So our Thursday episode we will be discussing the final. But the list of all the URC award winners has been released. You know, and I just quickly want to run through that. So boot of the Gilbert Golden Boot went to Lloyd at he plays for the Scarlets. Didn't do a lot wrong when it came to his goal kicking and anything like that. He probably single-handedly kept the Scarlets in the race up until they lost to Leinster. You know, top try scorer is Harry Millard from Cardiff.
Well done, Harry.
Yeah, well done, Harry. Tackle machine was Ruben van Heerden from the Stormers. So at least we got one Moomish award there. Ironman was Cam Winnett, also from Cardiff. Not sure what the Ironman award entails, you know, maybe just physical presence. Not sure. Playmaker, I agree to an extent. I feel that there was a lot of them that probably put their hands up, but that went to Tom Farrell from Munster. So well done to Tom on that. Next gen player of the season, as we discussed earlier, was Cameron Hanekom, and it's a pity that he is injured now. But next gen player is definitely the standout in that. The innovation award actually goes to your team with the Sharks. Also not sure what the innovation award would be for. Maybe the innovation award would have been to make 600 carry meters and still take the game to penalty shootout. I don't know what the innovation award on that would be. Try of the season went to Dion Fourie.
That is so shame.
Yeah, Branas, he did well. It was a good try. It was a team try, and great stuff. Obviously, we discussed South African Vodacom URC Player of the Season went to Ngomazulu, to Sasha, and well deserved. He is a talent. We have our opinions. About that, but he is still a talent. BKT Coach of the Season.
This one I saw. What the fuck? Yeah.
Yeah. Massimo Brunello, from Zebre Parma, and I was also looking at it and I was like, I don't know. But then if you go and you actually sit and think about it, Zebre Parma probably had the best season that they've ever had in the URC. Okay, all the other teams did exactly what was expected of them. But Zebre Parma surprised. They had a couple of victories they weren't supposed to have, and what a team that plays with the heart, and a team that plays for each other, and a team that plays with heart and a team that plays for each other has got one thing: they've got a coach that can keep them together. We know this because we support the Springboks. The Springboks have that same mentality. So I'll give him his credit, and hopefully next year, how fantastic would it be to see Zebre Parma competing for in a quarterfinal? Maybe even going into a semifinal. Scenario. So I like the way Zebre plays. They try to play this attacking game, and it's going to probably pay off for them sooner rather than later. And they've got that coherency,
To me, it's a bullshit call. I mean, if you think about it, I get what you're saying. I do. I don't understand. Out of all 16 teams, they chose the guy that took his team from 16th place to 15th place. I'm not denying they had a few good games. They really, really did. Almost beat the Sharks, Kings Park, which isn't the biggest achievement. I just don't understand how this guy got. I mean, there's a lot of other. Look, what about Franco Smith? Okay, he got smashed down in the finals, but his Glasgow Warriors team also had a few very, very. Now, Leo Cullen, I mean, the Leinster have almost lost minimal games. I think they've lost 2 or 3 games this season. He had a C team, Leinster team, go down to Durban after 3 weeks of travel and beat the Sharks in Kings Park. Not even his top players. I mean, that's coaching. That's all that is coaching.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Like I said, I don't know what the criteria would have been. I'll see if I can find it, and we can have a discussion about it when we record on Thursday. Just to see what was the guidelines that they measured this on, and then the last award, obviously going to the Viking, players player of the season, going to RG. Which is good. So a lot of South Africans, in there. In that awards system, so that is good for us. We still have a team in the final. We had 3 teams in the top 8. So overall, I would say it was a good URC campaign for South Africa. We still made up almost half of the top 8. We still had 2 teams in the semifinals. We're the only country that obviously had 2 teams in the semifinals. So. Looking at it from that perspective, it was a good campaign. A lot of players came back from injury. We're talking about guys like Damian Willemse, talking about Sasha, for example. Yes, we've gotten a lot of injuries, but I also feel that there's a lot of people that stuck up their hands. Evan Roos, one of them, obviously unique circumstances has forced his call up into the 55-man squad for the Springboks, but let's look at the positives for us from this season. 2 positive names I want to just call out of that is probably going to be Wilco Low and Jan-Hendrik Wessels. They've probably cemented themselves as the 2 props you don't want to scrum against ever in any competition. Yeah. I mean, you look at Cameron Hanekom, nobody stops talking about him. Sasha, we're going to mention Sasha. I mean, we mentioned Andre Esterhuizen on inside center, probably the inside center of the URC for me. There's so many players that younger players that started putting their hands up as well, especially in the South African setup, where you did have lacking and whatnot, and for Sasha to come back from injury and to play the way he plays, I would also not really want to play a lot of rugby after I've been tackled in the hip by Ntlabakanye, I would also fake an injury for about 6 months. But yeah, that's it for the news and all the stuff from me. It was a interesting weekend. You saw on our WhatsApp chat when I sent you on the rugby chat when I sent you, it's going down to the wire, where we have a 0.23 difference or a 1.23 difference between me and you for this final. And
just remind everyone.
Yeah, so yeah, so we have a Super Brew pool, and in the links down in the links for in the YouTube video, there will be a link to join the Super Brew, the rugby Spear Tackle Rugby Podcast Super Brew pools, if you want to, and we would love to just compete with everybody and whatnot. But this season, me and Brenton went down to the wire, first and second, and we've been rotating those positions quite a bit lately. Going into the final, I had my Bulls prediction was spot on. I did say by 12, so I got full points out of that. But Brenton's leading with 154.83 points, and I'm right there with 153.5. So I think to make it interesting, I've already locked in my pick for the Bulls. Go with Leinster, and we make it a toss up.
Okay, let's do it.
And then may the best man then win. And we've got another guy that also talks on with us on some of our rugby groups. I'm not sure what his surname is, but I know him as Jordan W. Jordan Watkinson. Yeah, he's been part of our pool for the last couple of seasons.
He's also right there with us.
Yeah, he's on 152.66. He actually dethroned me last week with I actually moved down to 3rd position for a few minutes. That was very upset. I almost wanted to kick him out of the Super Brew pool. But yeah, so everybody is welcome to join. It's just for fun. There's not at the moment. There's no prizes or anything like that. But we are when things do change and if we do at later stages do get sponsors or whatever, we will obviously consider going into a pricing structure with that. But for now, we're gonna go off, enjoy the rest of our Sundays, and maybe go to bed a bit earlier. And Brenty, I will see you on Thursday for our build up to URC Final 4.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, boy. Cool. Be safe. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.